Hi, I'm Sandy Genovese, and we're looking at a fun card that you could help your kids make for Father's Day today. Here is a card, and it says, love you, and when you open it up, it says this much. How many kids have not told their dad when he asks them, how much do I love you? And you always open your arms all the way up. So this is a really fun visual way to depict that in a card that you can make with your kids. Now, if I close it up, you can see that I kind of need to start with the hands. You can trace around your kids' hands or around your hand if you want it bigger, or if you have die cut hands, but you're going to need two hands, and you also want a cuff. And the cuff needs to be in the same spot on both hands. So what I'm going to do is go ahead, you can see I've already put adhesive on just the base of the hand in order to put a little bit of a cuff there. And I'm going to use this as a guide so that when I place this hand right over the top and put my adhesive once again on the bottom of the hand, it allows me to make sure that the cuff is in the same place so that when the card sits closed, the front and the back cover match and they line up nicely. So you have the two hands. However, when you look at this card, you're going to see both sides. You're going to see the inside of the card as well. So I think it looks best to put a cuff on the inside also. So let me go ahead and put a matching cuff on the inside of each one of those hands. So I'm just going to line this up with the blue cuff that's already there and get a nice edge there, and I'll do the same thing here. Put my adhesive. The cuffs that I did to make it look a little like a dad, I actually went back with a white pen and I added white lines so that it would look a little bit like pinstriping, like a pinstripe shirt. And I also used a circle punch to create what looks like the little button. So if you want to add those details, I think it's easiest to do those right now while these hands are sitting like this, loose. So you have what's going to be the front and the back cover. Well, the inside is going to be based on the size of your hands. If you're going to do like me and you're going to write this much, and if you'll notice, as well as this much, I also have two panels that I've used to create a large heart right in the middle. So that means I'm going to need accordion pleats that have 10 sections, 10 little pleats in my green strip. So if you decide you want to say love you tons or love you lots, you don't need as many accordion pleats. That sort of depends on your message. But for me, I need 10 pleats for this card. So the size of the pleats are dictated, you can see right here, it has to fit inside what's going to be the cuff and the hand. So for me, I ended up having 10 pleats, and they're each 1.5 inches wide, and the height of this whole strip is 3 inches. So you'll end up with a long strip that you're going to score every 1.5 inches and then fold into the accordion pleats. And the accordion pleats are going to sit in the card like so. I think it's easiest to go ahead and put the wording while it's loose before the hands are attached. So I'm going to go ahead and just try to use my tweezers. This is a Tim Holtz die that I used to cut out the lettering for the letters that spell this much, because I really love it sort of mixes and matches the fonts. They're not all identical. They feel like they go together, but it kind of reminds me of like when you see things typeset. It sort of looks like that. So I'll put on the supply list, I'll put the name of the die. Right now I can't remember what he calls this alphabet. So go ahead and fasten this down. And if you want to make sure it's straight, you could put a guideline. When I work upside down like this, it's really hard for me to tell when things are straight. You're going to leave, or I left, 2 pleats for the heart that's going to go in there. So I'm going to leave those 2 and then start again with the M. And so here's my M, and I can see, I'm trying to get a sense of how much spacing to leave. You can see, like, I'm not a measurer, but if you want to make sure yours is straight, of course, you can either mark with a pencil, a guideline, or cut a long strip and lay it down and use that as your guide. But I'm going to go ahead and just continue to attach the letters to spell this much. And there was even a dot to the I, and you know when you have to put adhesive on some little thing like a dot, I put it on a post-it note on the sticky part of the note so that it holds it firm while I roll my adhesive over the top. And now I can peel it off of the removable part of the note and stick that on there. So you have your message ready except for the heart. Now when it comes to the heart, what I did was I have a heart cut out of black and out of pink, and I've used my white pen to write love you, love you, love you. And just on an angle, I'm going to go ahead and cut this heart apart. So I only want to use a portion of it. You can decide, do you want this at the bottom, or do you want this? I think I'm going to go ahead and put the love you, love you, love you at the top of the heart. Although, of course, it really doesn't matter. It's whatever you prefer. You may decide to just use patterned paper for your heart, and it may not need anything else. You may already have as much embellishment as you need. But I'm going to lay this over the top. Sometimes I'll go back with another color. Do I have another color? Well, there's a slightly different, I don't know if you can see, that's a slightly lighter shade of pink. Red would have really been good because it's, you know, a better contrast, but it just adds a little bit more dimension there. And I'm going to trim off the excess around the heart. And then while I'm looking at this heart from the back, you can see that I've marked the halfway point. This is going to sit in this fold. And because I've got a few layers here, when I fold this, it's going to want to crinkle. I think it looks better to cut it in half and attach each half to each side of the pleat. So I'm going to go ahead. It'll be easiest, I think, to put my adhesive on first. So because I'm using an adhesive, these nice dots, for this is the adhesive from 3L that I love. So I can still see my pencil line that just segments in this heart into two, so I can see my cut line. So I'm going to go ahead and attach one half of the heart to one side of the pleat and the other half. And of course, the love you, love you, love you will line up because it was written while it was still one heart. It was still one piece. It's hard for me to, in this lighting, to see exactly where that fold is. So let me place this together. But I'm not going to push too hard so that when I close it, if it needs to slide around a little bit in order to be perfectly placed, it can. So, well, it slid around, but a little more than I want. I'm going to see if I can get that it's a little tighter together. I think it looks better when it's a little closer. I do need to leave a tiny spot for the seam so that when it folds, it doesn't crinkle. But I don't want a big seam, just a little seam. So once you have this and everything is fastened down, fold it back into its accordion pleats and then place your adhesive on one end, the back of what will be the first. Make sure that you have it positioned so that it reads not upside down. Make sure that it's going to read correctly. And then go ahead and place this inside so that nothing is sticking out. And if you want it to stand up, you also want to make sure that it lines up with the bottom. So I'm going to bring it so that it clears all the edges of the hand and that it also lines up with the bottom of the cuff. And then I'm going to go ahead and put adhesive on what will be the other end of the card. And I'll take this hand. Let me see if I can use tweezers so it's, you know, trying to do it so my hands are not in your way. And I'm going to, once again, I want to line up my hand. So I want to line up the cuffs and I want to line up all of the fingers and the thumb. There we go. And then when it lines up, go ahead and press. So when you open it up, you have your Love You This Much card. The other thing that I did was I did some fun decoration on the cover. Very small, but remember, inside it only, at this point, it only says this much. So somewhere on the cover, you have to indicate love you so that you have the whole phrase. So I'm going to take a smaller heart, and with a white pen, I'll just write love you. I'm going to just write love you. Can't write upside down. I can print upside down. All those days as a teacher, it comes in handy, but I can't handwrite upside down. So if this is the front of the card, then I'm going to want to place this. I'll go ahead and put just a little bit of adhesive on this to hold it in place so you can see. This is going to go somewhere in the middle of the hand, so that now you have love you this much. It's just really cool. Well, as I said, I used pinstripes that I just used a white pin in order to create so that it had sort of a masculine feel. But you may want to make this card and you may want to direct it so that it has more of a feminine feel. So here you can see another option. And here is the same style of card, but this time the hand is opening. It still says love you. And when you open it up, it still says this much on the first pleat, but this time I'm using hearts inside. And instead of my pleats opening this way, instead of the hand sitting so that it opens like this, I've opted for the pleats to go what I would call, this is a horizontal representation of the pleats. This is a vertical representation of the pleats. But notice that the cuffs, what I've done is I've just taken and I've used a scallop scissors in order to create what looks a little bit like the lace of a blouse so that you have more of a feminine look. And this is just a completely different, looks like a younger hand. But either way, it's the same message. You know, either of these cards, they would be perfect for you to help your kids make for their dad for Father's Day.